Ice Rock Mining, and we have Tamir Khoderov is with me, and he's going to give more details of the legal part of the ICO. I'm sure, כן. גם החלטנו שזה יהיה באנגלית.
You know, if everybody can pretty much hear me without the microphone, yeah?
If you don't hear him, just say, okay?
Yeah. So, let's get the video. Yeah, but before we start it, so my background for you guys to know, I came from financial markets. The blockchain is huge with many different applications. So it's important to understand that my perspective is from the financial markets perspective and the monetary system. So like the banking system. I was a trader for many years. And the first part of my speech is really more about the blockchain and Bitcoin and currency and money and the system. Then the second half will be more about mining. And the reason why I want to do that is because you really have to have a certain basis of understanding and a certain perspective as to how you view the blockchain. And only when you have that are you going to be able to have an opinion and have confidence in your opinion as to what Bitcoin means to you or what cryptocurrencies mean to you. So with that, I'll start. And we're going to just watch 2 minutes of a video. And this video is, you have to press Control to get the link to work. This video is a video of Good Morning America in the States. I don't know if, I'm sure you guys have heard of it, but it's a morning talk show in New York. And the purpose of why I'm showing you this is because I want you to take a moment to think about 1994, which was when the internet was getting big, just starting. And this video will kind of just remind you and take you back and see how you responded to what the internet was becoming at that time. And this was, what amazed me when I saw this is that this was only 1994 and it wasn't that long ago. But when you hear them speaking, it'll be almost funny. So let's just take a minute and watch this. The volume. The point really is that the blockchain hasn't even gotten to the point where they're doing that yet. That's how early we are. And the blockchain is going to provide solutions way bigger than what the internet provided. Way bigger. So the implications of the blockchain are a lot greater, and we're still a lot earlier in its development. But that poses both an opportunity and a lot of uncertainty. It's important that you just keep this in mind as I continue. Now we can scroll down. And I'm just going to switch over now to a little bit about the history of money and central banking, because this is also very important. This was from a gentleman who wrote a book called The Creature at Jekyll Island, which was the history of the central bank. You can read the quote, I won't walk, but essentially what happened was in 1907, the banking system had a crisis. At that time, the banks in the US were lending a lot of money out, but they were also backing it by gold. There was a system where gold would flow from Europe into the United States in order to support the economic growth that the United States was going through. And that was the backing of the currency, essentially. You had a certain amount of gold, you could lend against that, and that would spur economic activity. Now in 1907, it was called the Panic of 1907. There was a lot of stock market speculation. The banks started to lend out much more than they should, and they couldn't get enough gold. And what happened was a complete freeze of the whole banking system. In other words, you couldn't get money, the banks were going under. It was very similar to what we didn't experience in a way, and there's a specific reason why I say that. But the point is, all the banks were basically broke, and nothing moved anymore. Now, one man stepped in to change things, and that man was J.P. Morgan. All right? So this was kind of the birth of our banking system. And what he did, and I have to accelerate kind of the long story short here, but what he did was, facing this crisis, he used his political power and his banking power and financial power to essentially give birth to the idea of a central bank. And the one specific power that this central bank had that didn't exist before was the power to print money. They realized that as long as there was something that had to be had, some physical intrinsic value, which at that time was gold, as long as that existed, they were going to always have a problem of failure. So they had to have the ability to print the money. But how do you do that? You had to get the backing of the government. So there was this relationship that began to develop where the banking system would be able to print the money. The government would be able to take that money and use it for economic development, but as a debt to the central bank. And the way the government was going to pay back the banking system was through taxation. So the government had the power to tax, that would generate revenue, and that revenue would go to the banking system. It was a very good relationship for them. Now, let's continue to scroll down, maybe. All right. Now, what is the blockchain? There are two problems that the blockchain solves. And this is why the blockchain is important. Forget about Bitcoin as something to trade. The blockchain itself solves what's called the double spend problem and the Byzantine generals problem. And it's not a very sexy thing, but they solved it. And because they solved it, it's changed everything. The double spend problem is basically this. Up until the blockchain, any transaction that was ever done in a financial system, they couldn't guarantee that that was the only transaction. They couldn't guarantee that there wouldn't be another replicated transaction that would screw up the ledger, so to speak. The blockchain solved that because what it did is decentralize the information to a peer-to-peer system that was going to get essentially a ledger that gets confirmed by all the computers that are working on the network. Why is that important? You do a transaction on your Visa card right now, and you spend $26, it goes to Visa, a centralized body, and they secure it for you. With the blockchain, any transaction is secure without Visa. Now, this is extremely disturbing to the banking system because the banking system is an intermediary. It places itself in between you and your money, and that's how it makes its money. And anything that decentralizes money is not good for the banking system unless they're the central power. A lot of the noise that we hear today, this government says this about Bitcoin, this government says that about Bitcoin, everything. What's really going on underneath the surface is a power struggle for the banking system and the financial system to retain its power over the monetary system. And Bitcoin is a threat because not only does it solve this problem from a technology perspective, it has a currency overlaying it, a mechanism that determines the value of the transfers. So this technology not only provides a solution that is practical and necessary, it also gives us a currency that we can use to trade and to see how valuable this ecosystem is.
What's the other problem it solves? You said the double spending?
The Byzantine general problem. Right. So the Byzantine general problem is, it's essentially why decentralization is so good. The Byzantine general problem is there's a city and there's 4 generals surrounding the city, but none of them can talk to each other and they don't know when to attack the city. So they're sitting ducks, basically. They can't attack the city unless they can communicate. And the Byzantine general problem is basically what it is that the blockchain solved that problem because it allowed information, as soon as information was received by one party, by one general, it was able to spread to the other generals immediately. That's decentralization. You use your credit card, instead of it going to Visa, it's going to go on the Bitcoin network. And immediately, my miners and his miners and his and his and his are going to verify your transaction. No need for Visa anymore. That's why cryptocurrencies they're developing so quickly, because they don't need a bank to say this is money or that the transaction is verified. That's a somewhat uneloquent way of saying it, but it sums it up. So, to give you an idea of the size of Bitcoin, right now, the market cap of all cryptocurrencies is 350 billion. The market cap of all the stock markets is 100 trillion. We are so early in this game, you don't know. The applications that you're going to see coming out and the applications that we're going to use in our lives, are coming. They're just being developed right now. So 350 billion compared to 100 trillion, we've got plenty of room for capital to come into Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies.
What is the 100 trillion?
What is 100 trillion? 100 trillion is the amount of money that's in the equity markets, the stock markets of the world. Now, the reason why I showed that video is because when you step back and look at how technology develops, when you look at it, when you look behind, you're able to see, wow, I can't believe that we looked at the internet like that. Now it's part of our daily lives. We're looking at the blockchain and having a similar experience right now. We don't know how to look at it. What's the blockchain? What's Bitcoin? Should I buy some? Is the price going to go down or up? Or da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And the people who are in the know and understand the implications of the blockchain and Bitcoin are always going to try to take advantage of that psychological uncertainty, the disconnect. They'll want to take as much Bitcoin as they can and make as much money as they can and hold as much power as they can. That's the nature of the game, so to speak. And what that results in is volatility. That's what we experience as volatility in price. 3 months ago, I don't know, three and a half months ago, Bitcoin price was like 5,000. Then China came out and had a bunch of negative stuff to say about Bitcoin and the exchanges. And it went from 5,000 to 3,000. This was at the time when Jamie Dimon said, Bitcoin is this, Bitcoin is that, it's going to end badly, all that stuff. Such a powerful statement to come from China and say, we're going to get rid of this stuff. It goes to 3,500, and in the next 2 months, it goes to 20,000. When people saw that, they realized nobody is going to control the network. They can't. This is part of the disruption that we're seeing right now develop. Countries talking about how they're going to interact with the blockchain. And it's a big deal. Scroll up a little.
Oh, man.
The difference is, for the first time ever, the legislative system and the banking system have different interests, because it no longer is necessary for the legislation to incur debt in order to receive taxes. It can take something like Bitcoin, which it doesn't cost the government anything for Bitcoin to exist, and they want to tax it. They want to tax the income on it. They want to tax the transaction. Whatever it is, they're going to figure out a way to tax it. But they don't need the central bank to do anything. They don't need the central bank to print money for them in order to get that. The banking system, on the other hand, has a problem, because the blockchain is disturbing their power. It's decentralizing. It's what's called disintermediation of the banking system. That's important, because when you think about how a government is going to react, you got to understand that the government's interest is taxation. It wants to generate revenue. And as long as they can, protect society, they will prefer a revenue-generating environment. And that's what the blockchain does. But the blockchain does much more to that, much more for the government. Take, for example, Israel. So I made Aliyah here 3 years ago, and one of the things that I experienced when I came in here is that I had to go to Misrat HaPanim and Misrat HaThis and that office and this office. And I said, why don't they just have one database? Why do you have to go to all these different databases? It's a very bureaucratic system that's inefficient.
They also didn't hear about the internet. They tell you to fax everything. Please fax me or send it by a
That's
pigeon.
all come face to face.
Yeah.
That's a good point. So let's take that for example for us. The blockchain is going to change all of that. The blockchain allows a government, for example, to use ID systems and all other kinds of systems to run the government much more efficiently and more securely. Now, a lot of the smaller, more developing countries, they're going to embrace the blockchain. And that is going to accelerate their growth. And the reason why you're going to see that from the smaller countries is because they have more to gain. The larger countries, like the United States, for example, with its corporate power structure and the banking system and all of this other stuff, it has more to lose. So this is really important. I think a country like Israel is going to become a powerhouse in the blockchain because of the talent and the youth and the innovation. And that's exciting. Scroll down. One thing, and then I'll get into the mining. It's very important for a currency to have something called consensus. And consensus is basically nothing other than the understanding that if I give you $10, you know that this $10 is worth $10 and that you can use it somewhere else for $10. That's kind of a crude definition of what consensus is. The fact that consensus is already happening in crypto markets is already a sign to a great extent that it works and that it's real. Otherwise, Bitcoin would have crashed much more and it wouldn't be worth anything and all that kind of stuff. But because Bitcoin is actually a solution, the blockchain, consensus is now being developed. And very few people are involved in Bitcoin. You hear a lot about it, but really, there aren't a lot of people that hold Bitcoin in the world. And all these solutions that are bringing banking to new countries that don't have banking. All of this is new, and it's going to spur a tremendous amount of growth, and it's going to create a new rich, because people are going to take the blockchain and create solutions and make a lot of money doing it and provide social benefit, because the blockchain is going to flatten the world. It's going to take hierarchical systems that have power at the central, and it's going to flatten them out. So it's an exciting time. It's a time where you can change a lot of things and make a lot of money doing it. Let's scroll down. So let me talk about mining and how am I doing on time?
We have like 10 more minutes.
Okay, I might be a couple of minutes extra. So mining is the process where you take computer power and electricity and you secure the network. A miner is a machine that's about that big. It has a processor that's about 3,000 times stronger than your home computer, generates a lot of heat and a lot of noise. The network needs miners in order to secure the system. We are the transaction center of the network. And in exchange for providing that power and that processing, we get a certain amount of Bitcoin for doing that. And there's a formula, and it involves something called hash rate and difficulty, which is really a kind of a way of saying, as the price fluctuates and as a lot of miners mine in order to secure the network, it varies how much you'll get paid. But to give you an idea, a typical mining company can provide its investors with returns of, let's say 2 months ago, we were providing a return of 20% a month. Now it's probably, Bitcoin has gone from, let's say, 13,500 to about 7,000 now. So now it would be about maybe 9% a month. And if it goes back up to 20, it'll be about 25-30% per month. Now, why is that? A miner is similar to a utility company. If you were to go into the stock market, if you were to invest your money and you said, look, I want something stable, I want a little bit of a dividend every year, and I don't want volatility, I want something safe. Well, a utility company is going to give you that. That'll be one of the things you'd find in a portfolio. Now, a utility company provides the power or the water, whatever it is, and provides you with 2, 3, 4% a year. So how could it be that a miner that's serving the same function for the network can provide 10, 15, 20 or more percent per month? It doesn't make sense, because that would be considered a very risky investment. And that's because that psychological lack of awareness so far, let's say, of what Bitcoin could become and what the blockchain could become, there's a disconnect between the perception of risk and how capital reacts, and how capital, whether it goes in or stays away. That is the recipe for opportunity. People have always made a lot of money when they went against the grain and were right, and then the money came in afterwards. And usually what happens is the money comes in, the capital comes in, bids up the price, and all of a sudden the margins compress. So your 10, 15% a month now goes to 5 and 4, and all of a sudden it goes down. But those people who were involved at the early stages made a lot of money. So mining is what I started to look into when I wanted to figure out how to invest in the blockchain. As I said, that's the most stable, That provides a monthly cash flow. How am I going to get involved in that? So what I did was, I do a lot of research, spend hours and hours online, and I found the company, a blockchain company based in Kazakhstan. I didn't find Borat there. Borat wasn't there. Kazakhstan is one of the coolest places I've ever been to, actually. It's super cool. So I get in touch with Malik, the owner, and I say, look, I'd like to come, see your place. I'm interested in investing, and I want to see what you're about. Now, the thing about mining is because it generates so much heat, the power that you need to cool off the miners and the electricity that you need to keep the miners going, those are very important costs. And also the facility itself. If any of you have seen, you can YouTube, Bitcoin mining, and you'll see in Iceland is the biggest mine in the world, basically, and it's massive. You can't even hear yourself talking when you stand inside. So he explained to me what happened. He was a Bitcoin miner, a hobby miner. He bought this mine because the natural temperature inside the mine is 12 degrees Celsius with all year round with no electricity. It's a cave. It was built by former Soviet Union military, and it was never used, and it's an agricultural land now. It's perfectly secure, and he was able to bring power to it at 3 cents per kilowatt hour. Here in Israel, we pay, I think, like 10 or 11 cents per kilowatt hour. So, more.
50 agora, something like that.
Right. So, mining is a very, very simple business. We use the miners to process transactions on the network. We get paid. We pay our investors. The key, and why I loved Ice Rock, is he had an asset that he put into the ICO. So it's not going to cost us investors any rent or any mortgage. So that cost was out. Cost of power was 3 cents per kilowatt hour. And cooling costs was minimal. So we sat down and I went over the numbers with him. I invested and I said, listen, you guys are here in Kazakhstan. Let me be your mouthpiece. Let me tell this story. And that's how our relationship started. And now it's developing to at such a level that we're probably going to be bringing on more and more mines, because the amount of capital that is attracted to this type of investment right now is insatiable, because we provide passive income. It's stable. You might make 10%, you might make whatever it is, but it's good. It's much better than what you're going to get in any other form of bond. But the key is, what do you think about Bitcoin and the blockchain? If you look at the blockchain and Bitcoin and you just look at the prices every day, you're missing the point. You're not going to understand what it really is. But if you learn and step back and take a big picture look at it, and if you do form the same opinion, you'll be able to take advantage of a lot of opportunity right now. Not just in the mining space.
Do you have any risks?
Yes, there are risks. So an example of risk is that you don't mine efficiently, or that your mines do not last. Like after 2 years, these mines are gone. You have to replace them. How efficient do you mine? Security, all of that stuff. But those are things that I can talk about later. But the essence of what I'm saying is that I went into mining because it was the safest, most consistent way to make money. And it's like you're buying Bitcoin at a 40% discount to its retail price. But it only works if you're willing to hold on to it for the long run. Because once you invest in mining, your money is now sitting there in processing. And that's how you're going to make. So you invest 10,000, it's like a bond. So now you're going to start getting 1,000, 1,500 a month. If Bitcoin prices go up, then you're getting even more per month. So we, at a certain point 2 months ago, were paying, you can pay investors back in 4 months. Now it's like 6.5 months. We have to see how Bitcoin prices will affect the return. So real quickly, I know we're 2 minutes
2 minutes.
Are you paying them with fiat or with Bitcoin?
with Bitcoin. And this is an important question. If you get paid with fiat, go to Ice Rock. Yeah. If you get paid with fiat, you don't get the whole benefit. The whole point of it is you can take your fiat and get paid back in Bitcoin. So if Bitcoin goes up, now your fiat return on your money has gone up. So that's important. This is the website. I'm not going to spend too much time because I do want to answer questions. This is the data room. It's where you can do all your due diligence. A lot of the paperwork is up there. There's a white paper here. And then just scroll down and we'll just do the video for it. I'm on YouTube. If you YouTube my name, Amir Ness, you'll see a bunch of interviews and all kinds of stuff. And this is the video. And this is a 1 minute thing. And after this, I'll just do quick questions and we'll be done.
Steve?
Minutes for questions and turn it over. Go ahead.
So you're launching an ICO. What the coin will be used for?
What's the what? The coin used for?
Will be used for, yeah.
Coin is a security coin, essentially. It's not used for anything. It just goes to represent how much of the profit share you own. So you purchase the coin, it's not that you go onto an exchange and sell it later for a gain on your profits. You purchase the coin to hold the coin. It's an ERC20 token on the Ethereum network. So we know who owns all the coins. We take 50% of the profits basically every month, put it into that one wallet, and then the smart contract distributes it to everybody. So if you purchase, let's say, $10,000 worth of coin, you're not purchasing it so you can go sell it. You're purchasing it so that every month you're going to receive your income.
Any thoughts on the potential move to proof of stake in Ethereum and other new currencies?
Yeah, so look, it's a real debate, and it's really a techie kind of debate. Proof of work is not going anywhere, and our focus is on Bitcoin, at least for right now. We'll get into, I mean, we're only doing proof of work because that's what it is, basically. So I won't address it too much because it's out of our focus, really. Thank you.
What do you think about the ecological impact of the mining system?
Say it again, the what?
The ecological impact, the environment.
Well, I mean, if you're mining it in a place where there's a lot of animals and stuff like that, it would bother them to hear that. But if you're inside a cave, you know, you're just, there's, actually it's funny because there's agriculture around us, you know, there's cows and stuff like that.
But no, the mining system represents more than 1.7% of the electrical
Power? Yeah. Look, I mean, if you're going to mine your country with coal power and, you know, you're going to draw more power,